Earth is currently experiencing a mass extinction, and it's largely due to human activity. Shockingly, over 20% of species are at risk of disappearing forever, and if we don't act, that number could soar to 50% by the century's end. But here's a twist. Extinction might not be as final as we once thought. Thanks to advancements in science, we have the potential to bring back some of the species we've lost. Imagine seeing the woolly mammoth roam the tundra again, or the passenger pigeon soaring through the skies. With techniques like cloning and genetic engineering, we could reverse some of our past mistakes. It's a thrilling prospect that challenges our understanding of life and conservation. Let's explore the possibilities of reviving these incredible creatures and what it could mean for our planet's future. 1. The woolly mammoth. What has huge tusks, a furry winter coat, and weighs up to 6 tons? Woolly mammoths, duh. Of course, none of us have seen these breathtaking giants in our lifetimes because they went extinct thousands of years ago. Although they were once thought to have vanished during the last ice age, a recent discovery has revealed that the last isolated colony of around 500 to 1,000 woolly mammoths actually lived on Wrangel Island in the Arctic Ocean as recently as 4,000 years ago. Unlike the elephants we know today, which populate habitats like the savannas of Africa and Asian jungles, woolly mammoths could be found in the tundra, which stretched across northern Asia, many parts of Europe, and the northern part of North America. Their smaller ears, shorter tails, and extra thick coats protected them from frostbite and made them well adapted to these chilly conditions. In fact, the woolly mammoth played such an integral role in the upkeep of this environment that it has also been nicknamed the mammoth steppe. Many scientists think the woolly mammoths died off when the weather became warmer and their food supply changed. Although, unsurprisingly, it also seems like pesky humans and their habit of overhunting may have had something to do with it. But could we be seeing the woolly mammoth again sometime soon? The possibility is more likely than you'd think. Over the years, a handful of well-preserved woolly mammoth specimens have been found frozen in Siberian permafrost, and these could now be the key to reviving the long-dead species. It might sound like something from a sci-fi movie, but scientists are hopeful that we might soon see animals we once considered extinct return through something they like to call de-extinction. Before we go any further, you can make sure Be Amazed never goes extinct by following these simple steps. Just hit those like and subscribe buttons and ring that little bell icon to make sure you stay up to date. After all, the world would be a bleaker place without the kind of weird, wonderful, and downright amazing content that'll keep you entertained for hours, right? Now, let's jump back in. The possibility of resurrecting species through de-extinction has become more and more likely, thanks to advances in the fields of selective breeding, genetics, and reproductive cloning technologies. In the latter part of the 20th century, tools emerged that allowed scientists to isolate and analyze DNA from the bones, hair, and other tissue of dead animals like frozen mammoths. At the forefront of these advances is a handy tool for gene modification known as CRISPR-Cas9, which can be used to isolate specific traits of mammoth DNA that could then be integrated into another animal's DNA, like a super sciencey cut and paste tool. This could come in particularly useful for bringing back the woolly mammoth because their closest relative is still living, the Asian elephant. Once the relative genes have been swapped from the extinct species into the living one, the hybrid genome would be implanted into a surrogate, or could even be grown ex vitro, outside the mother, using an artificial womb. This approach doesn't produce genetically identical copies of extinct animals, but rather modern versions of an animal engineered to look and behave like its extinct relative. So, the end result would be a sort of mammophant, well adapted to the conditions of the far north, with shorter ears and a thick hairy coat, rather than a bona fide woolly mammoth. But why should we bring the woolly mammoth back in the first place? Well, it could actually have some major environmental benefits. According to George Church, the researcher heading up the Harvard woolly mammoth revival team, bringing back the giants could help convert the Arctic tundra back to grasslands that existed during the last ice age. You see, mammoths and other large herbivores trampling across the ancient Arctic ecosystems helped maintain the grasslands by knocking down trees and spreading grass seeds in their dung. But when these animals vanished, the the ecosystem transitioned into the mossy tundra and taiga we see today, with permafrost that is starting to melt, gradually releasing harmful carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. Russian geophysicist Sergei Zimov has already carried out extensive research proving that tundra can be converted back to grasslands with the reintroduction of grazing animals. With a mammoth herd taking part in something like this, the results could indeed be astounding. But how close are we to bringing the woolly mammoth back? In 2017, Church said that we could see live woolly mammoths in a couple of years, while Dr. Tom Ellis, who's leading research into synthetic biology and genome engineering at Imperial College London, thinks it'll take at least 10 years. But things are advancing every year. In 2019, top-end scientists in Japan made a breakthrough when cells recovered from a 28,000-year-old preserved mammoth showed signs of life. So, at this point, it certainly feels like a question of when, not if, we will see these giants walk among us again. Second Thylacine. All this talk of de-extinction might be exciting, but we are still far from recreating Jurassic Park. Since modern revival techniques mainly rely on analyzing DNA recovered from well-preserved specimens, de-extinction does not yet extend to dinosaurs, partly because of the extreme age of the specimens and severe DNA degradation over time. For this reason, we are more likely to see the revival of species that became extinct more recently, like the thylacine, also known as the Tasmanian tiger. This was a large, sandy-colored creature with distinctive dark stripes along its back, the head of a wolf, and a long, stiff tail. The thylacine was native to mainland Australia, Tasmania, and New Guinea. It is believed to have gone extinct on mainland Australia around 3,000 years ago, but survived on the island of Tasmania until the 20th century. Being a keystone predator, the thylacine was accused of killing sheep, leading to government-sponsored bounties, which ultimately contributed to its eradication. The last known thylacine was a male specimen held at Australia's Hobart Zoo, where it died on September 7, 1939. Ironically, this thylacine is thought to have died of neglect. Locked out of its sheltered sleeping quarters, it was exposed to rare extreme Tasmanian weather, enduring extreme heat during the day and freezing temperatures at night. And with that, the thylacine was wiped out for good. However, this may be about to change. Around 750 thylacine specimens are preserved in museums, most being pelts and bones with limited viable DNA. However, 13 young thylacines were removed from their mother's pouches and preserved in ethanol. In 2017, one of these young specimens, held at the Melbourne Museum, provided enough high-quality genetic material for researchers to sequence the animal's entire genome. For those not fluent in science, a genome is essentially a complete set of an organism's genetic instructions. Since each genome contains all the information needed to build that organism and allow it to grow and develop, successfully sequencing one means scientists now have the genetic blueprint to resurrect an extinct animal. The thylacine genome has revealed details about the marsupial's evolution and its decline towards extinction. This is a crucial step in possible plans to clone the creature. Cloning might sound like science fiction, but it has already proven to be a viable option. In the 1990s, a technique known as somatic cell nuclear transfer, SCNT, was used to produce the first mammalian clone, Dolly the sheep, born in 1996 and passing away in 2003. To clone an extinct animal, scientists would take a preserved cell and extract its nucleus. This nucleus would then be transferred into an egg cell from the closest living relative and implanted into a surrogate host. While long-extinct animals like the woolly mammoth may not be clonable, this technique could work for species like the thylacine. Mike Archer, a paleontologist from the University of New South Wales, led a pioneering project to study thylacine cloning in the early 2000s. In 2013, his team succeeded in cloning embryos of another extinct species, the gastric brooding frog. In 2008, a team led by Andrew Pask at the University of Melbourne became the first to activate genetic material from an extinct species within a living organism by inserting thylacine DNA related to bone and cartilage development into mouse embryos. Cloning the thylacine will be more challenging than George Church's project to resurrect the woolly mammoth using Asian elephants, as there is no closely related species for the thylacine. However, Pask's work has shown that what seemed like a ridiculous possibility 20 years ago is now increasingly achievable. So, when it comes to bringing the thylacine back, never say never. Third, Siberian unicorn. What if I told you unicorns once walked among us? I'm not talking about the graceful creatures from children's books, but a totally different beast, the Siberian unicorn. Aside from the enormous horn on its nose, this creature, which roamed the grasslands of Eurasia, shares very few similarities with its fictional counterpart. Instead, the Siberian unicorn weighed a mighty 4 tons and looked more like a giant, hairy rhinoceros. Over the years, a few fragmented Siberian unicorn bones have been recovered, but they have been difficult to analyze. For instance, a skull found in Kazakhstan in 2016 was radiocarbon dated up to 29,000 years ago. However, due to the lack of collagen, the result was considered unreliable. But in 2018, everything changed when the DNA of this mysterious giant was successfully analyzed for the first time. Although the hulking animal was initially thought to have gone extinct between 200,000 and 100,000 years ago, radiocarbon dating of 23 bone specimens by an international team of scientists revealed that this Ice Age giant actually survived in Eastern Europe and Central Asia until as recently as 36,000 years ago. This means it roamed the Earth alongside early modern humans. Surprisingly, humans likely had nothing to do with their extinction. Instead, new evidence shows that the hefty beast may have died out because it was such a picky eater. The Siberian unicorn was like a glorified prehistoric lawnmower, grazing on tough, dry grasses. However, during a period of significant climate change, while other grass eaters adapted their diets to include herbs, shrubs, and other vegetation, the Siberian unicorn did not. It continued grazing on the dwindling supply of grass, even as encroaching permafrost destroyed much of its food source. DNA analysis also revealed that the Siberian unicorn was not closely related to modern rhinos, contrary to popular belief. Instead, it represented a unique lineage that split from the ancestors of modern rhinos over 40 million years ago. Scientists hope that studying the extinction of this animal might help save the remaining rhinos on the planet. Currently, only 5 species of rhinoceros exist, and they are notoriously picky about their habitats. What we've learned about the Siberian unicorn's extinction highlights that even without dramatic climate change, subtle vegetation changes can wipe out an entire species. This was before humans restricted animal ranges, making the lesson even more critical today. Large grasslands, such as the plains of Africa, are now under scrutiny, and understanding the Siberian unicorn might be key to preventing history from repeating itself. So far, complete Siberian unicorn specimens have never been recovered. We don't even know how large its horn was because none have been found. However, parts of the skull where the horn would have grown have inspired estimates suggesting it might have been up to 1 meter in length. How much more we can learn from these magnificent creatures depends on the amount of DNA that can be recovered. If a perfectly preserved specimen, like those of woolly mammoths, were to be found frozen in ice, scientists might be able to sequence the full genome. This would mark the first step toward resurrecting the species. While we may not see these creatures as soon as some other candidates for de-extinction, there are certainly reasons to explore this possibility further. Fourth, passenger pigeon. I know what you're thinking. The last thing this world needs is more pigeons. But you might be surprised to learn that one of the prime candidates for de-extinction is exactly that, the passenger pigeon. This small gray bird with a pinkish-red breast was once extremely common in North America, but vanished around 1900. Unlike today's pigeons, which are generally considered pests, passenger pigeons, whose numbers are estimated to have reached nearly 5 billion at the start of the 19th century, played a dramatic role in shaping the forests they inhabited. Their numbers were so great, and their droppings so prevalent and flammable, that they destroyed trees and increased forest fires. I know that doesn't sound like much of a positive thing, but hear me out. After the passenger pigeons went extinct, these healthy natural disturbances ceased. White oaks lost their primary mode of seed dispersal, and the forests have never been the same since. But why did this functionally unique species vanish? It seems the reason for the passenger pigeon's extinction was, you guessed it, humans. People ate passenger pigeons in huge quantities, but they were also hunted and killed because they were perceived as a threat to agriculture. As Europeans migrated across North America, they thinned out and eliminated the large forests that the pigeons depended on. At a time when the pigeons were already dying out, 250,000 birds, the last big flock, were shot on a single day in 1896. That same year, the very last passenger pigeon was observed in the wild in Louisiana. It was also shot. Way to go, guys. Thankfully, we might be able to make amends with these seed-spreading birds. Passenger pigeons were as essential to the forests they inhabited as woolly mammoths were to the tundra, so bringing them back could be a major step in restoring their former habitat. Ecologist Ben Novak, the lead researcher working on the passenger pigeon project at Revive and Restore, wants to resurrect the bird using its closest living relative, the band-tailed pigeon. However, determining how many genes need to be swapped is a daunting task. The genomes of the two birds are around 97% the same, but that remaining 3% has built up over millions of years and will take some figuring out. Even then, it's a matter of getting the hybrid cell to grow in a surrogate, hoping the genes work harmoniously together, bringing the bird to term, and hoping it acts like the extinct species, even though it was raised by a modern relative. Still, Novak is hopeful. If his team secures enough funding, he says, there's no reason we can't have the first generation of passenger pigeons by something like 2022 to 2025. So keep your eyes on the skies. Fifth, saber-toothed tiger. If you've watched the Ice Age movies, you know what a saber-toothed tiger looks like, except they were probably a lot scarier in real life. After all, these fearsome predators were named for the pair of elongated teeth protruding from their upper jaw, which reached a staggering 11 inches in length. These big cats roamed North and South America during the Pleistocene epoch and went extinct approximately 10,000 years ago, likely as a combined result of environmental change, decline in prey population, and of course, human intervention. Despite their intimidating size, clocking in at around 5 feet long and up to 620 pounds, and those extremely sharp canine teeth, the extinction of the saber-toothed tiger also happened to align with the period when humans started to make huge strides in hunting technology. Although they may not have hunted them for food, humans may have killed them for sport, using simple projectile weapons. Over the years, scientists have uncovered a number of saber-toothed skeletons and fossils in places like the La Brea tar pits of North America, which have revealed additional details about this impressive creature. We know that they were large cats with short limbs, and scientists now believe that they may have been similar in size to a modern-day African lion. Despite the name, they actually weren't related to modern-day tigers found in Asia. In fact, it has been suggested that their closest living relative is actually the clouded leopard, which is the only modern carnivore with skull features that even approach saber-tooth proportions. Considering saber-tooths existed at the same time as woolly mammoths and would even have eaten the occasional small mammoth, resurrecting these predators isn't out of the question. If more complete and well-preserved specimens are found frozen in the Siberian permafrost, these could allow scientists to extract DNA and successfully sequence the genome needed to revive the species. Of course, the next step would be to determine which living relative could act as a successful surrogate for the hybrid genome. But there's one big question. Are there any benefits to bringing back these Ice Age predators? As it stands, de-extinction has more to do with ecology than tourism. After all, it would be morally wrong to revive a species that is going to be a zoo animal forever, or a new, more dangerous predator that could threaten existing species. Whether the world is ready to see the saber-toothed tiger again remains to be seen for now. But, as we've learned, extinction is not always the end. Which of these extinct animals would you most like to see brought back? Why not check this video out? It's about supposedly extinct animals people have caught on camera. Thanks for watching, guys.